Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Michael. I'm going to be your host for this afternoon's session. Should last around about half an hour, this particular session. It's the first of our series of webinars for our VAT Proficiency 2025 badge series. So welcome along. Loads of sessions to attend. I'll tell you more about those in just a couple of minutes. Now, just before we get started, we're going to run through a little bit of housekeeping, just in case any of you are new to webinars. So you don't need a microphone for these sessions. If you've got one and you have enabled it, you will find you muted automatically. You can't unmute yourself during the session. So if you do have any questions for us today, you will need to type them into the questions panel. You'll be able to access that by clicking the little speech bubble icon on your toolbar, which should be down the right-hand side of your screen. Give it a click. You'll have access to the box at the bottom. So any comments or questions, pop them in there. Remember to click send as well, otherwise we won't get them and we'll try and get an answer to you. Now we're joined today by Abby, Matt and Tina. They'll all be on hand in the background to help answer those questions. So you may get a straightforward answer, it may be a link to our help centre, or if it's a bit more complex, they might encourage you to get in touch with our support team or possibly even HMRC, or if you are joining us from Ireland, contacting the revenue. There is an opportunity to download the handout. Not a great deal of detail in there. You will find the detailed information that you require will be available from our help centre. We'll be covering and encouraging you to use that quite a bit in today's session. As usual, the session is being recorded and a link to it will be included on your follow-up email. You'll receive that round about an hour after we finish. And it will also include a number of other links as well. One will be to our upcoming webinars page. So if you haven't yet registered for the other sessions or the other topics that we run, then watch out for that one. And also it'll include a link to our recording. So if you've missed any sessions or you need a bit of a recap on anything you've attended previously, do have a look. There's probably well over 100 recordings available on there now. Right, now for the webinar series that we are running over the next 2 weeks, we're also running the same sessions throughout July as well, just to give you a chance in case you miss any sessions. We're just trying to make it as flexible as possible, just by putting them on as much as we can. So we're running 7 different topics, all relating to VAT. If you attend any 5 of those 7, plus one of the quiz sessions, so the quiz session is the mandatory part, but any 5 of the 7 plus the quiz, you will earn that digital badge, and that will be issued normally the week after we finish the first sessions. Then if you haven't quite achieved it, if you haven't quite met that criteria, if you attend any of the other sessions, we'll try and get that the week following the sessions in July. So plenty of scope for you to get hold of that. Today, though, is session 1, mastering tax codes. So looking at those tax codes. Now, specifically, it is UK, but if you are joining us from Ireland, then we will be touching on that here and there. There's not that much difference. Yes, there's the list of tax code itself is considerably different. There's a lot more tax codes to deal with, and that are set up by default if you are in Ireland, but pretty much pretty much the same sort of process that you'll be going through. So do get yourself registered for those if you haven't already. Link will be included on that follow-up email. Right, let's take a look at what we're covering over the next half hour or so though. So it's quite a short session, this one, just to get you and ease you in gently into the world of VAT. So we're looking at tax codes today. So we're going to start with a brief introduction. So we'll be looking at defaults, so the default tax codes that you've got set up, how you can access those tax codes as well, so you can look at the setup itself, and also, if necessary, how you go about amending those settings. We're going to look, we've got a section then on which code. Now, we're expecting a lot of questions on which code should I use for this, which code should I use for that. We can't really answer those questions. We can point you in the right direction. So we'll look at the help resources that are available. I'll be touching on that today. So if you've got a question like, you know, I've sort of purchased a service from abroad, which tax code should I use to enter that? Then some of the resources that we're going to be covering today will sort of point you in the right direction. But if you're not sure, then either speak to your accountant or HMRC. Which boxes do you need that transaction on your VAT return? which boxes do you need it to affect? How should it impact on that return? Then we'll be able to tell you at that point, point you in the right direction a bit then. Now, I do have a hands-on task. So do get involved in that. I'll get you using your software. Don't worry if you haven't got your software available from the PC you're working on. The recording will be available, so you could always try that later on if necessary, but I'll get you involved. We'll use that task as well, or the results of that task, to try and pick up a number of different scenarios. So get you used to the help resources that are available. So when you do have those queries going forward, how should I enter this transaction? What tax code should I use? Hopefully, it will stand you in good stead. You'll be able to try and find that using the help resources that are there, and you'll have easy access to it after that hands-on task. Just at the end, we'll explain more about the additional support, and if there are any outstanding questions there, we are expecting to get loads of questions today, so do keep them coming, but if there are any outstanding, we'll try and pick up some of them and pick up on those common themes of questions as well. So let's just quickly start with a brief introduction. So the way that you go about sort of accessing your tax codes, and the tax codes are set up by default for you. It doesn't matter what version or whether you're in Ireland or the UK, there will be a set of default tax codes set up for you. So if you're in the UK, there's a lot more than there used to be these days because of things like partial exemption and reverse charges and things like that. So if you need a copy of that default tax code list, and it is just the defaults as well, you might find yours is different to that defaults because you've set others up, or you've changed VAT schemes over the years, or maybe you've set up a tax code manually, and when you've installed an update, it's trying to create a tax code, and then it's had to use the next available tax code for what it was intending to set up for you. So it can be a little bit different here and there. But if you are wanting a list of the default tax codes, I've included 2 links on the page there. They're nice and easy to find those anyway. We'll be touching on the Help Centre a little bit later. But if you do want that list, that's where you'll find them. Now, to access that list, I'll just quickly show you in the software. So I'll just quickly share my screen. And all we're going to do is we're going to pop into settings at the top, and then the first option is configuration. Now, if you don't have access to that, it will be down to your access levels within the software, your access rights. But if you do have access, you'll have a tax codes tab at the top there, and then it will list the tax codes that you've got set up. Now, what you can't do is you can't hide them. So any that aren't in use, it won't hide them by default. You've got that list. It goes from T0, and if I scroll down all the way to T99. So essentially you can have up to 100 tax codes in your software, and it can feel like you've probably got more than that at times, depending on your VAT scheme. But you'll see the ones that are in use, they'll generally have a description next to them. If you are based in Ireland, some of them will look like they're a bit of a repeat as well. So do refer to the list in our Help Centre on what you should use depending on the specific type of transaction. Some of them will actually have almost an identical description if you're in Ireland. So generally, T0 to T9, it's something you've always had set up. There are some, even then, there are some gaps in amongst it. And if we scroll down, you'll see there's others as well. And again, this is where you might differ. If you switch VAT schemes from things like cash accounting to the standard scheme or vice versa, you may have used your other codes at some point for something else, and then these will just be tagged onto the end. So there's quite a few these days which are set up for you. Now, if we just highlight one, if we just highlight this one as an example, and we can go into edit at the bottom. And this is where, if necessary, you could come in, you can change rates. You've got other settings in here as well. Is it active or not? Should it be included in the VAT return if you post a transaction using this tax code? Obviously, you'll have your description along the bottom. Now, the description itself it actually has no bearing on the use of the tax code. Obviously, you might want to put something additional in there, so you can if you want. It has no bearing on the VAT return, that description. You've got things like reverse charge option, and also you've got settings for if it's an import or export code. But again, if you want that default list and you want to find out uses of the tax codes, what the tax code is, how it's used, which boxes of a VAT return that tax code would impact on, then do check out the information in the Help Centre. You can, when you're in here as well, you've got the help link in the top right. So if I just give that a quick click, just accept that, and it would take you into the likes of the configuration editor. If I just go back a page, and if I just press F1 while I'm in here, let's make sure I'm closing the Help Center itself. So while I'm in here, if I just press F1, we'll bring up the tax codes, still the configuration editor. But if you search our Help Center, you will easily find that information. So there is that default list, just in case anyone needs to get back towards that. Now, the obvious one, and probably the most common type of query that our help center or help support team do take is, which tax code should I use? Now, obviously there are loads, so we're not going to discuss them all. I'm just going to discuss these three. There are three that people use interchangeably, so T0, T2, and T9. Quite common to get them mixed up. Generally, T0 and T2 will have impact on your VAT return in exactly the same way. All will calculate zero VAT. They're all 0%. So T0 is for zero or goods and services that are classed as being zero rated. So things like most foods, children's clothing, books, newspapers, prescription medicines. Just a few examples of what would fall under that category. T2, finance charges, education and some training, health, postal services, insurance. And then we've got T9, which is used for non-VATable transactions. So these are transactions that should not be picked up on your VAT return. So the payment of wages, for instance, you wouldn't want that to be picked up as a purchase on your VAT return. So it's money going out, yes, it's an expense, but you don't want it to be picked up on the VAT return itself. It's what would be classed as a non-VATable transaction in Sage. So things like putting money into the bank or transferring it between bank accounts, paying your PAYE and NI, the introduction of capital, loans, dividends, gifts of money. These would all be categorized as being non-VATable and therefore would be posted with a T9. Now, I have included a link there at the bottom as well. So tax codes for popular goods and services. Again, it would bring up this type of information. It's readily available from our help center. So one of the common ones as well is bank charges. So bank charges in the UK is classed as being exempt of VAT. So normally, when you put bank charges through, you should be using T2. If you've used T0, you probably find it works in exactly the same way. But it's quite common to put them through with a T9 tax code. Now, if you have done that in the past, I'll probably recommend that you either speak to your accountant about that. Obviously, you would still want to declare that on your VAT return, or maybe speak to HMRC as well. So if you have been putting them through a T9, they haven't been appearing on your VAT return, the VAT liability overall wouldn't change, but you would normally still declare them. So they would appear in box 7 normally on the UK VAT return. Right, now the Help Centre itself, I'm going to mention this quite a bit over the next couple of minutes. The Help Centre, loads of information about VAT. As you can probably imagine, we get loads of questions on it. So let me just quickly share my screen. I'll show you this rather than just tell you about it, give you an idea of the type of information that's available. So if I bring up my browser, and we'll head along to our help center, so sage.co.uk/help, which will take you to this screen. Now, right on cue, my internet is going to go really slow, but it takes us to the help center. Let's just load that one again. I'll just choose the product from the top here, so we'll choose Sage 50. Right, I'm going to go straight there instead. Right, so it'll take you to this page, and on this page, I'll just zoom out a little bit so we can see more of it. There we go. So obviously you can search for your questions. So pop in some keywords and try and find what it is you're after. But there is this section here, what we term the Manage Your VAT Hub. So if we click that, it's then just a case of you choosing your region. So are you based in Great Britain or in Northern Ireland, or are you based in the Republic of Ireland? So if we just choose Great Britain and Ireland, this will give you an idea of the types of resources that you've got available. So set up and process your VAT return, submit your VAT return, things like tax codes. So what we're talking about today, it's a very popular query, that one. And most commonly, people will contact our support team and say, well, what about this scenario? What should I use? And that's something really our support team and us on the webinar today can't really advise you on what tax code you should be using just based on that. You need to know what it would be categorized as and how it needs to impact on your return before we can give you an answer to that. But if we pop into tax codes, you'll find the default tax codes. You've got your popular tax codes and other information as well. And the similar options are available for Ireland as well. Now, what I want to do is access the tax code finder. Now, I'm just going to search for which tax code. See if it finds it for me. So this one at the top here, which tax code should I use? Now, this is the UK one. And on here, what this article is, and it's probably one of the most commonly used articles, this one, our tax code finder. So it'll start asking you questions. So let's say, right, it's a purchase. So we'll click that option. So then takes you on to a series of questions. So it was a purchase, it's a service. And just a case of you filling in the answers as you go. And hopefully you get to the point, if I view the steps, it'll check for the right information. And it'll tell me how I should enter that into my Sage. So in this case, let's say it was a purchase of a service, the supplier is not VAT registered, it's saying, right, well, you should enter that as a T0 tax code. Give you a little bit more information about that as well, and which sort of box on your VAT return it impacts on. So it's a great resource, that one. Now, what we're going to do next to encourage you to use this, and as I say, it's quite a common one. Our support team will use it. If you ever ask them a question like that to try and get you to the right answer, they'll use this extensively as well. I don't think anyone professes to know all about VAT. It's quite a big government department as well, that one. So to try and help you. So what we're going to do, I'm going to go back to the slides just for a moment. I'll find the right button. There we go. So we're going to do a hands-on task. So if you do have access to your Sage 50 accounts, if you can, try the following. I'm going to show you what to do, and then I'll post a bit of code for you so you can have a go of it as well. So you can configure your F11 and F12 keys in Sage to help you get at either applications or maybe online support, help you get at them very easily. And F12 is something that we've encouraged people to use for quite some time with regard to the tax code finder. Now, if I just go back to my software for a moment, we'll bring up Sage. Let's just cancel out of this. What we can do is I can go into Tools and then Options. Great webinar tomorrow morning at 11 if you all want to find out more about all of the options in here. But on the Environment tab, you can configure your F11 and F12 key. Now, basically all it means is when you're working in Sage, if you press F12, for instance, by default, it would bring up the Sage Report Designer. If you press F11, it would bring up the Windows control panel. Now, you can replace these if you want to. If there's something you always access when you're working in Sage, or the likes of what I would advise you to use it for, is to access key information, such as the tax code finder. So what I can do is I can paste a bit of code in here. Now I'll pop this into the chat box in just a second, but if I delete what's there at the moment, and I paste that code into that, which is basically it's going to link me into the relevant help article that we've just been looking at, and I click OK, what it means now is when I'm working in Sage, if I just press F12, it should bring up my web browser, which it has on my other screen. I'll just drag that across. And then it brings that one up. So I'm straight into, is it a sale, is it a purchase, is it bank charge or interest? Filling in those options, trying to find how I enter that transaction. And it doesn't matter what you're doing in Sage, you just press F12, whatever code you've got in there, it'll bring that up. So what I'll do, I'll get you involved at this point. In the chat box, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop in the code that you'll need to copy and paste. So the chat option should be down the left. Now you'll need all of that, not just the underlined link. You'll need from the CMD all the way to the end of that. If you copy that code, so chat option should be on your toolbar down the right. So what I'd like you to do, if you can, is within your software, go into Tools, Options, on the Environment tab, delete what's in the F12 box at the moment, and then paste that code in there. So I'll just show you mine again. So give it a go. Copy that code from the chat box. So CMD /C start plus the link, which the link is basically to the relevant help article in our help center. Pop that in there and then click OK. And then give it a try. From your main screen, press F12. Does it bring up that help article? If you want to use it for any other web page, maybe you want to configure F11 as something else. Shona, you mentioned you don't have the code showing in chat. Make sure you access the chat option rather than the questions panel. Actually, I'll pop it in the questions panel as well, just in response to what you've just entered there, just in case someone's looking at that. So again, you want all of that code either from the questions panel, again, Shona's question there, or from the chat box. So pop it in there. If it works when you press F12, if it brings up your browser and it brings up the help article, let me know. Just pop a yes in the questions panel, or a no if it doesn't work. So I'll just give you a minute or two just to try that. So just to confirm, Bev, you mentioned it did work. Lucy, you mentioned, do you go onto Tools? It's Tools and then Options. I'll just show you. Tools, Options, and then it's on the Environment tab. You've got the F12. Ella, you mentioned there you don't have the Tools option. If you don't have the Tools option, it'll just be down to your access rights. So if you needed to use that or you wanted to use it, just be a case of whoever logs in as manager getting that to enable that for you. Again, Helen, you mentioned that as well, but loads of yeses coming through there. So Rita, you mentioned there it's saying file not found. Make sure you copied the exact code in there. You need the CMD and the space and the rest of that code. Make sure you copy it all in there. Paste it all in. Heather, you mentioned you have Report Designer. You haven't pasted the code in there. You've just left what's in there by default. You will need to paste that code into the box. Excellent. I think in the main there, it seems to be working for everyone. If you're on version 28.2 or above, you can use F11 in that way as well. So do use it. Next time you've got that question, just remember, press F12, it'll bring up that help article for you. You don't need to go searching for it. It's at your fingertips, F12, it'll bring that up for you. As I say, you can use it for other purposes as well, if required. Right, what we'll do is we'll have a bit play around with that then, if you don't mind. So maybe try these scenarios. Use that help article. If you didn't quite get that set up, all you need to do, just open your browser, go to sage.co.uk/help and just search for which tax code, and it should find that article for you. So have a look for bank charges. Can you find out which tax code you should be using? I might have given that one away a little bit earlier. I might have also given away question 2 there, that scenario 2 as well. The purchase of a service from a supplier who's not VAT registered. But have a look at some of the others as well. Sale of goods outside of the UK when you've got proof of exportation. Can you find the tax code that you need to use? But if in doubt, so you try it or you're still not sure, get in touch with HMRC. Now, they won't be able to tell you which tax code in Sage you should be using, but if they can say, right, it's classed as an exempt transaction, or you should put it through as a zero rated transaction, it needs to be declared in box X, Y, and Z of the VAT return, then that's when you can contact our support team and they would be able to point you in the right direction. So have a go of those scenarios, work through that as well when you get a chance. Right, okay, so just about bringing us towards the end of today's session as well. Now, as I mentioned, it's a short session, this one, just to get you into the swing of the VAT webinar badge series. If you've got any final questions, do pop them into the questions panel. We're trying our best. As I say, we've got Matt, Abby and Tina on hand trying to answer those or at least point in the right direction. So if you've got any final questions, pop them in there. You can download that handout. However, as you've seen today, not a great deal of information on the slides. It's all contained in the Help Centre articles that you've got available. And remember, you will receive a recording, as you do for all of our webinars now. You will receive the link to recording on the follow-up email in round about an hour's time. Now, we've touched on the Help Centre, loads of great resources in there, not just the articles, you'll find guides, webinars, videos, and if you can't find what you're after, it'll hopefully point in the right direction to get in touch with our support team, and the best way to do that as well. Just while we're waiting for those questions, just to quickly mention a little bit about Copilot. We're running a few webinars on this at the moment. If you are interested and you just want to find out what Copilot is all about, it's almost like I suppose what we term your digital assistant. So it's on hand, again, helping to provide that key information to you to help you understand your business, manage debt, manage stock, monitor your business performance, that type of thing. If you want to see that in action, see what it's all about, please get yourself signed up. Again, the link, just follow the main registration page link on your follow-up email to get yourself registered for that one. Just in case anyone's about to leave, obviously that does conclude our brief introduction to tax codes. Just to set the scene a little bit with our webinar badge series. We've got loads of sessions planned in. Tomorrow we'll be looking, I'll be guiding you through looking at the VAT return. So split into 2 parts just to make it a bit more manageable. So he'll guide you through that one. We've got things like VAT verification checks and reports and a number of other sessions as well as that quiz at the end. Now, if you could take a minute to complete the little survey that will pop up as you leave, that'd be greatly appreciated, including the option just to, what would you like to see next? So there should be a little question tagged onto the end of that survey. So what would you like to see us cover going forward? Is there a badge series you'd like to see us run? Concentrating on a certain area? Let us know. So that follow-up email will be with you in round about an hour as well. So if you watch out for that one, link to the recording, link to our registration page if you aren't already registered for our other sessions, and also a link to our recordings page. Okay, any other questions? Obviously the questions panel it's been very busy with me getting you to interact with it earlier as well. Did it work or did it not with regard to the F12 key? So we're having to try and filter through. A few people did mention that you couldn't get it to work or you were getting some sort of error. All of the function keys do have a use as well, just in case you are interested. So all your function keys, F1 all the way through to F12, do have a use when you're using Sage. If you want to find out more about those, again, just access the Help Center, search for function keys. For the F12 key and configuring that, again, if you get into the Help Center, just type in F12, do a search. It'll find that code that you need to copy as well, just in case you copied it incorrectly, but it should work otherwise. Okay, right, I think we're just about on top of the questions. We will have a look through the questions a bit later on as well. If there's any we haven't answered, we'll try and get an answer out to you. If you're desperate for an answer, just get in touch with our support team. Or, as I say, if it's specifically it's which tax code should I use for this scenario, get in touch with HMRC. Make sure you understand how that needs to impact on your VAT return and then get in touch with our support team. Right, we'll end the webinar just at that point. Many thanks for coming along this afternoon. Hopefully we'll see you on the other sessions this week and next, and also for the quiz towards the end of next week. Otherwise, take care and hopefully we'll see you then. Many thanks.